can't remember, I was with him 12 years. About the year I got there, we do a good move for those parts. I think there was a house. Warrants or something. Right. Well, he was in well, and that was always a big contention of the while short. Even though we were on stock, I stopped. And he said, "All right, it's a problem." And that really caused me. I said, I think it takes
It reaches out to it.
So the story.
I think there was another one. Yeah, probably the template.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 10:30. Why don't we come to order? I'd like to welcome everyone to the planning and zoning, really a special meeting to consider a couple of things. I want to thank Angie for getting the minutes out from our meeting. That was nice. While it's not on the agenda, I guess we ought to move to amend the agenda to add approval of October minutes. If someone make that motion, then we can do that. I'll move it. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All in favor. Thank you. Let's have a moment of silence now. To get our meeting started. Yeah. I think we all understood that we're here today, not for a regular meeting to consider the substance of things, but really to finalize what we did previously on the subdivision ordinance. Make sure Taylor put it in like we intended and she intended. And then to consider similar revisions to the wireless communications ordinance. Although we're not, again, it's not a substantive things, these are grammatical things primarily to bring in the statutory changes. So with that, let's take up the revisions to the subdivision.
Mr. Chairman. You want to take up the minutes first? You want to take up the minutes first?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Can I just make a quick note?
Yep.
Since Alan is here now, and Bill is an alternate, Bill, you can still participate in discussion, but just don't vote.
Sure.
Okay?
That's right. Okay, we ready? All in favor of adoption of the minutes as previously circulated? Are there any changes? Dan had some.
With my usual apologies for being so picky. The bottom of and for not reading them until this morning, I'm sorry about that as well. On the bottom of the first, second, third, fourth page of the minutes, the paragraph beginning at the bottom of the page, it starts with under Article 4 compliance. Are you with me?
Yep.
The paragraph begins under Article Roman 4 compliance, quote, planning and regulation jurisdiction, et cetera. The next to the last line, it says under 401, the following sentence was added. A couple of little minor technical corrections. One, it's not a sentence. I would suggest change that word sentence to language. The following language was added to the beginning of the second sentence. So add to the beginning of the second sentence. And then in quotations, delete the word "the" because it's already in there. And then add a quotation mark at the end of that quote. So the sentence would then read, under 401, the following language was added to the beginning of the second sentence. Quote, review officer designated pursuant to North Carolina General Statute Section 47-30.2 shall not certify subdivision plat, period, close quotes.
Close quotes. Any questions about that? Okay, you will proceed, Dan.
And then I had on the very next page, the big full paragraph at the bottom half of the page, beginning under Article Roman 6, procedure review and approval. If you go down to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 line at the far right end, you will see 604.29. So it reads, Ms. De Christina stated that P and Z would refer back to 604.29. I can't find a 6.4.29 in my book or overlooked it or something, so it must be a reference to something else.
We'll ask Kayla to check that and make sure that's right before we.
And then continuing that same paragraph, go down about 5 or 6 more lines. And at the end of the sentence, the end of the sentence that I'm referring to, and it's about the 10th line down, it reads, in section 604.3, corrections were made as to the, then the next line, correct appendix. I see no appendix in 604.3. So again, I'm not sure what we're referring to, but either I overlooked it or there's not an appendix in 604.3 to be referred to, if that makes sense.
Kayla, will you check on that too? Anything else?
That's it.
I have one thing, and it's a factual thing at the top of page 3. Under Montreat sign ordinance, says zoning administrator Scott Adams. That may be who it was, but he was gone by now, so I think that was probably Taylor. Just
Where is it?
top of page 3. Under Montreat sign ordinance. Zoning administrator Scott Adams previously circulated.
No, he did that.
What now?
He did previously start.
Okay, so why don't we say prior, insert the word prior. Okay, is there a motion to approve all these revisions?
So move.
Well, I got one more. Angie, could you put page numbers on the minutes? Thank you. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
All opposed? Thank you. It passes
So-
unanimously.
So I'm not sure exactly what these two are referring to. I'll go back and watch the meeting
Sure.
and figure out what it was.
Okay.
So I don't have an answer on that right now, but I'll
I
let you
think
know.
we can still approve the minutes and with those minor changes. Okay, any other business before we begin to look at the subdivision ordinance? Okay, and I think what we'll do is just let Taylor, it was very helpful because you identified the changes and where they came from, and then you had a separate set with just the changes. Very helpful.
Great.
So why don't
Glad, I'm glad the format works.
Yes. So I'm looking at the one with the changes and the comments, and you can compare them. Yes, the text amendments. Text amendments to the town of Montreat subdivision ordinance. It's really the first one that appears, and these are the ones with the comments on the right hand side.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the title.
You what?
I said I'm sorry about the title. Amendments. It should only be one.
It does make sense because these are text amendments.
I
Amendments.
guess so. Okay, so what you're saying, Bill, is you want to go
Could you
through
just lead us through
the
quickly?
staff
Or
report
maybe we could just ask if anybody, oh, we'll do that. We'll just go through page by page.
on the staff report, which is what this is, or you want to go through
Yes.
the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so if everyone can get the ordinance, this was the second. It's not this, it's not this one, this one,
Blue. It has blue.
okay?
All right.
Okay, Josh, would you go to the next slide? Just gonna do brief review. This is text amendments to the subdivision ordinance. Applicants, the Town of Montreat zoning administrator on behalf of Board of Commissioners, Mayor Pro Tem Widmer. It covers most articles. The text amendments are for the purpose of revising the Town of Montreat subdivision ordinance to comply with state statute revisions under 160D, Article 8, add definitions, and provide corrections and clarifications to the ordinance. All right. So everyone go to page 1, Article 1.
Got it.
This is the reference to the correct 160D section.
So we're just, any comments on this? Where are we now? I'm sorry. We're on page
Um,
1 of the blue line.
This document. So it's the second one. It should be in that packet, that
Yeah, that's it.
packet that I gave you.
Share it. I think I've got it right, but this is it right here, right?
Wait, hang on, because I had,
Okay,
I thought I.
I've
had
got,
one-
we can share. We can
Okay,
share.
I thought I had one more.
So we're on.
Okay, yeah, so this is, turn around, yeah, so this document, not the staff report, okay?
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
We don't need to step.
All right. So page one, this is,
I just, we won't go through, it. We just see if anybody has any questions. That'll be a lot quicker.
okay, so,
We've got the markup.
okay,
So
so
that
do you
gives-
want me to just go Article 1? Any questions?
Just say page one.
Page 1, any questions? Okay, moving on to page 3.
Got page two, just to go through, even though there are no changes.
Okay.
Okay.
Changes to page 2.
Right.
Changes to page 3. Now I want to pause on page 4.
Okay.
So we had discussed the definition of a minor subdivision. So I reached out to Clyde and Maggie Valley, which were the two jurisdictions that I looked at for a definition for Montreat. And I know we had some questions about what utility extensions and dedications meant. Both of those jurisdictions responded that utility extensions are limited to water and sewer lines. So it would be an actual extension of the line itself, not a tap, not power lines, internet, none of that. And that wasn't actually codified in their ordinances. So I don't know if we want to state that that's what utility extensions are limited to. I guess,
It's off-site extensions. As it comes to the. top.
well, and it's limited to water and sewer, not power lines. Not, and I couldn't find anywhere that did include power lines and things like that.
What do y'all think about that? I think our discussion was really about the extensions. Dan, you were saying. But you were saying any extension, you know, it's always.
Yeah, I was concerned about that. That's what it meant. And I think you added this clarifying sentence, did you not? This last sentence has been added since our last meeting. Is that correct?
Mhm.
The sentence that says for purposes of determining the minor subdivision, deal extensions, da, da, da.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was okay with that.
That's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, right, okay.
Is everyone okay with that addition?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Good.
All right.
If you can satisfy Mr. Dean, you're doing a really good job.
All right.
Yeah.
Page 5. Any questions? 6,
I have a question or two on 6.
yes.
Let me get the notes. Oh, where's 6? Well, no. Must be looking at it different.
Should be
Where-
Article 5, general requirements for design.
Yeah, I see that,
standards.
but I'm seeing. Yeah, I must have been looking at. I'm looking at definition of townhouses. Where was that?
That was on page 4,
Okay, I've
So
got, I was looking
moving-
at another one than this one. I didn't pick. it up.
moving backwards, yeah.
Back up the definition. Still can't find it. Oh, here it is.
All the way at the bottom.
Very, at the very bottom townhouses.
Attached. Okay, it's correct that I was looking at one that did not show a correction, so I'm good. Sorry.
Okay. So 4 is okay, 5 is now okay.
Well-
I believe, Dan. Okay, Kayla.
402. Where is section 402? I'm sorry, I was looking at another. one.
Section 402 is page 5.
It's page 5, it's 2. All right, let me look there 1 second. Okay, does it have is there a comma after outdoor activity? In the
Where?
first line? Is that what you're inserting there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, again, I was looking at another one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's.
Just good. All good.
Page 6. Page 7.
Hold on. Uh, Okay, I'm good. Yeah, I was off a page and I'm just trying to
Okay.
catch up here. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
good.
so page 6, we're good. That's Article 5, 500, 501, 501.1, and
I-
501.2.
I just raised not because of a technical correction, which is what we're talking about here. I still don't understand this section. I raised that last time. This whole thing about this conservation subdivision design and when it's once chosen shall proceed, and then you can't get around it in another section. Just the whole concept. I don't get it.
Yeah, so what I have noted is that we'll come back and actually talk about the content of this
Okay.
section. And get into what it's requiring, what it's, what the best way forward is.
Okay.
At a later date.
Okay, and I noticed even in the minutes that Susan Taylor, our town attorney, raised a question about we need to look into this
Yep.
section a little more.
Yeah,
detail.
but right now the purpose is just we need to comply
Okay.
with the state
And I
statute.
suspect that'll be the January meeting unless y'all want to have a special meeting.
At the end, let's talk about some of our topics of concern to move forward on so that we can just get through these changes and get in compliance with the state. Okay. All right, page 7. Page 8. Nine. 10. 11. 12.
A lot of changes in these.
13. 14. 15. 16.
On 16,
Mhm.
under number 2, the next to last line, sentence from the bottom of that, number 2, it seems like for clarity that after the word and, there should be words that say something like, and shall stipulate. Just for clarification, I don't know how others feel about that.
I don't know where you're reading.
Page 16, 601, number 2 down at the bottom, the next to
Yeah.
last paragraph. Just for clarity, it's kind of an awkward sentence as I read it. Should say that shall find either that it does or does not meet the requirements of this ordinance and shall stipulate what improvements, if any, will be required.
I
Do
think
you,
that-
do you want to make that a motion?
Yeah,
Am I allowed to?
you okay with that, Kayla? We're
Yeah, that's
adding and shall stipulate what improvements if any will be required by the city.
Yeah, I think that's fine if you make that motion. If you guys can move second and vote.
I make a motion to include that language.
Second. Trying to remember who voted here. Okay,
Anything else on that page?
I'm impressed all y'all. did.
This is
It's
17. 18. 19. 20. 21. 22. Dan, you got a lot of papers over there. You good?
Both within the same stack. So that's
See, when this gets to the town council, Mason's just gonna do the same thing.
exactly.
23. 24. 25. 26.
Down 26, I thought the typeface at the bottom is 607 had changed.
I'll fix all of the formatting.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Sometimes Word docs don't cooperate, so I will fix all of that
Okay.
after. 27. 28. 29.
I had a question if I can remember what it was in 701, subparagraph 3.
Mhm.
To review and make recommendations to the Board of Commissioners regarding proposed amendments to the something we're deleting variances from. And I suppose that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yep, because back in 606, we're delegating variances to Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
All right, 30
Let's see, back on 21, can I jump back? I was,
on page,
page 21.
Yeah.
The second sentence from the top, where it says 125% of the reasonably estimated cost of, I think completed should be completion.
yeah, that's fine.
Where, I don't know where you are.
He's
Uh,
page 21 at the top, second sentence down.
Correct.
Can I get a motion, second and vote?
A motion to change completed to completion.
Second.
Aye. All right, going back to page 30. Do you have any comments, questions on this one? Okay. 31. 32. 33. 34. 35. 36. 37. 38. 39. 40. 41. 42. 43. 44. 45. 46. 47, 48. 49. 50. 51. 52. 53. And 54.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Okay.
Is there a motion now to approve this as amended as a whole? And then to move it to the town council, which would probably be its January meeting, I would.
They're meeting in December.
Are they
so
meeting in December?
I'll probably bring it to them.
Right. Is there a motion to do that?
I so move.
Is there- John seconds. Any discussion? I want to thank y'all for all your work on this, because I can tell everybody spent time on it. Kayla, yours, but
Who made the motion really quickly? I did.
you, Julia,
Thank you. Yeah,
and,
my pleasure.
and John second. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you all very much. Okay.
Great.
First,
Okay, can you, Josh, go 1, 2, 3, 4 slides? One, yeah. Perfect. Okay. All right. So our next text amendment. This is applicant's Town of Montreat zoning administrator on behalf of Board of Commissioners. This is amendments to the Town of Montreat Wireless Communications Ordinance, specifically within Article 4 and 5. These text amendments are to revise the Town of Montreat's Wireless Communications Ordinance to comply with state statute revisions, correct review procedures, remove antiquated references, and provide corrections and clarifications to the ordinance. So do you want to do the same thing? we
The
did
same thing,
before?
this is the first time we've been through this.
So we'll
but-
go to the ordinance itself. Yeah,
Yep. So one
Not-
that's got the markings.
no, well, do you want to go, well, this is the whole ordinance. So you want to do what we did for subdivision?
I think so, because.
Okay, so yes, everyone go to this one.
Yep.
Should be after the staff report.
And I noticed that you got text amendments here too. So-
Mhm.
so- okay, Great. So we're on page 1 of the blue, red, green markings. Is that right?
Well, that's the text amendment. So do you guys, if you guys want to go section by section, we need to go through the whole ordinance. The text amendment only has the sections that are changed.
Okay.
So which way do you guys want to do
I think
this?
we can do just the changes unless there's a question that comes up. Yeah.
If we just go through the changes today, then later on we can talk about maybe some things that we want to examine further, correct?
That's right.
And several, there have been some emails to us about the ordinance too.
Yep.
So we'll consider that. as well.
Yep.
So-
Okay, so then everybody please go to the staff report, which is this one, this document. So it's the document that has the red and green text on it.
Okay.
All right. So we'll go to page 4 of that document. They're only the amended sections. All right.
On page 4, I had a question, is what is table A?
Oh, that's in the ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it table A of the ordinance? Okay,
Table, yeah, so table A is in the ordinance and it specifies, exactly what it does. Antenna attachments onto existing structures, shall be permitted by administrative approval if they meet the development criteria provided in section 5 and they are, within table A.
great. Okay,
Okay, so on this, I'll just go section by section. So page 4 of the staff report. Yes, Dan.
I'm not sure where we are again. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So we're in the,
I'm referring to a page and I'm
Yep.
referring to one and I'm afraid you're referring to another.
no, so we're gonna be on the staff report. So this document,
in this, it's the blue marking. And where we are right now is in Roman numeral 4 subsection 1.
yep. So you're on page 4 of this document that you've got in your hand. And we're on the first, exactly what Bill just said.
Right there.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay, so in this section, the only thing that's changing is, instead of requiring a conditional use permit, it goes to a special use permit, since conditional use permits, were removed, with the general statute revision. That's the same for Article 5A. Again, removed conditional use permits, changed it to special use. The next section, which is C1D, changes the title from zoning official to zoning administrator. All right, moving on to page 5. L1, again, removing the conditional use permit, replacing it with special use.
I just have a question in that paragraph.
Mhm.
It's the first sentence. I was curious by administrative review, what does that mean?
That's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
L2 under that. So I looked into this and there's no existing preservation commission. Do you have, Liz, do you have a
Well,
Oh, no, and then I'll talk about the
there,
other part.
there were two things that came up was the definition. Do we have a definition for a historic district?
No,
Or,
no.
okay,
Mm-mm.
and then also the preservation.
I don't know what that is, and we couldn't
Okay.
find any record of that existing.
John, you've been around. long time dealing with this.
I'm not that old, and I don't recall that was coming up before. Didn't come up in my previous tenure.
Okay,
So removed reference to that. And then the other piece that needed to come out is certificate of appropriateness. So certificates of appropriateness apply to development in historic districts, not wireless communications facilities. Montreat does not have historic districts. That's a whole other level of development regulation that we don't have. So that needed to come out as well.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. And I'm, again, apologize because I used one document and wrote down my notes and I'm lost here a little bit, but going back to page 4. If I'm looking at the right document that you're looking at, the section entitled Other Lands, that number 1 near the top, am I on the right page? That y'all are
Yes.
looking at?
Mhm.
In there, it refers to, it says it's in about 4 or 5 lines down, included in 1 or 2 above. And it's have a same reference in height standards, number 3. In the next paragraph, it refers to identified in 1 or 2 above. And I think there's somewhere else, actually. I could not find a 1 or 2 above. And I was looking at the whole ordinance. I just did not find any 1 or 2 to which that is referring.
Yeah, that's the same for me. Prior to applying for, the applicant shall provide the town with adequate information to establish that things included cannot. Dan, I believe that 1 or 2 is referring to table A, the way that it's read.
Is that a small table? I'm trying to get that.
Yeah,
Yeah, table 8. Well, it kind of would make sense, but there's no 1 or 2 in there. So
yeah, so I think we maybe change that to just table A, if that makes sense.
y'all agree with that?
Can
I
I-
want to make sure I understand the change. So the change is table A above, which means the applicant shall provide the town with information to establish that it can't use one of those locations.
Yep.
Okay,
Mhm.
that makes sense to me.
So can I get a motion to revise that?
So we're changing 1 or 2 to table A.
Table A. Dan, you making that motion?
I'm trying to get my head around it, but it sounds reasonable. So yes, I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Thank you.
And there were 2 places, right?
Yeah, it's over in it's A3 also.
Give me
below.
give me 1 second. I can only go so fast. And then it was also in. 1 and 2. Okay, and then also in Article 5A3. Yeah. Yep. That makes sense. So can I also get a motion for that one?
Is there a motion to that?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. I'm not asking if there's any discussion. If y'all want to discuss it.
Yeah.
Slow your chairman down.
Okay, Dan, thank you for catching that. Okay, so I believe we're now back on page 5 of the staff report. L1, 2, and also M. So in M2, changed the title of planning director to zoning administrator. Under M3, changed conditional use permit to special use permit. And
I'm
then
sorry to interrupt you.
Yep.
Where are you now? What section are you in? Is it M you're in?
we are M, and then we just did M2, A, C, and E.
Can we back up to
Yes.
paragraph L? And I apologize.
Yeah.
In L, paragraph L's review process and subsection 1 says permitting procedures. And it starts off attached wireless communication facilities with or without new building construction that meet the development criteria, and there it's lowercase. Then we go to the next page, and there's a reference to development criteria, and there it's capitalized. And yet I find no definition for that term, whether it's lowercase or uppercase, which uppercase, as I understand it, it means there is a defined term somewhere, but I could not find it. So I think any reference to development standards somewhere, I would recommend that we put in parentheses right after it, lowercase, uppercase, we can debate that, but say it's set out in Article 5, Roman numeral 5. I hope that makes a little bit of sense.
I agree with Dan. They are referred to as development standards.
One place is lowercase, another place is uppercase, but there's no definition anywhere. So I think if we're gonna throw that term in, we need to reference or define it or somehow or tie it to some definition.
So we could either take the term out and put in development standards or just reference Article 5.
I'm looking at L1, the second line, but you're saying change
And
development.
then
criteria to
and then
development
L2
standard.
on the net, and L2 near the end of the paragraph L2, it's defined. I mean, it's that term appears again with capital letters.
Where's that?
The third to the last line of
That's it,
L2.
Yeah.
So in L1, it's that term development criteria lowercase, L2 is development criteria uppercase. But I find no definition anywhere. So I'm just raising the question, how do we tie it down? And one suggestion I had was to somehow tie it back to Article Roman numeral 5. I think that's on page 6 in the whole ordinance.
So say something like development, I'm just doing one right now. The development standards set forth in
Article Roman numeral 5 is entitled Development Standards.
what now?
Roman numeral 5,
In Rome, in Article 5. And under that, and that's development standards.
yes.
Okay. So that, what I'm hearing is development standards set forth in Article Roman numeral 5. in parentheses, Quote, or I don't need, quote, just development standard, period. Comma.
Do we describe it as Article 5 or subsection 5? Because at the bottom and on page 10, it's references
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
subsection 5.
Subsection.
Well, not,
Sorry.
Complicated. No, not-
you're-
no, that's good catch. I don't know if it's section, subsection, article, sub-article, whatever it is. But for what it's worth, and again, I'm looking at the whole ordinance, not the
Yeah.
amended one y'all are referring to. On page 13 of the whole ordinance, if you have it, there is a section under Board of Adjustment Review entitled Development Criteria. And it defines it as set forth in section Roman numeral 5. So
Oh,
it
that's
kind of ties
interesting.
it back to the same thing there, which I'm trying to do with these other two places.
You're in 3C1.
That is correct.
Mhm.
3C number 1,
see
it
it
talks
there.
about development criteria set forth in section Roman numeral 5. I think we just need to be consistent, tie that term everywhere back to the same. So whether subsections, section, article, whatever, we do need to tie all the references back to the same source.
If I may make a suggestion, I can go in and add article section. Tighten it up as far as, because you're right, it's not clear. Is it an article? Is it a section? Is it a subsection? Is it a chapter? It's not clear. Like if you think of the general ordinance, there's chapter K, article 3, section 303. So I can do that. I
Just
can
need to be
go in and add.
consistent with Whatever. it's
Okay, are
called.
you also going to change development criteria to?
Do you want that
development
changed to
standards?
development standards?
Since it's lowercase, it doesn't like that.
Well, but that section,
Or it does say
it
development.
defines the development criteria. So I think we need to remove development. We need to be consistent, either criteria or standard.
The definition, if you go back to Article 5, that was, where is it now? I can't find it. Article 5 is entitled Development Standards. we're referring
Page
development
6.
criteria back to development standards. So we're
Yeah.
using the term,
Well, yeah, I'm looking at the ordinance.
Article 5 itself is entitled development standards. Everywhere else, we call it criteria
I think it would be cleaner to refer back to the development standards.
That's-
and call it development standards in those three places as well.
Right, right.
So all references to development criteria become development standards.
As stated or as defined or something in Article 5.
Okay. And I'll go in and find all of the,
Yeah, there
So
may be
that
others.
would then
That's
mean-
what
Yeah,
I came
I'll
across.
go in and find them.
3C of paragraph, page 13. 3C1, that's entitled development criteria. So we're gonna change that to development standards also.
Yep.
All right,
So can I get a motion to add articles, sections, add organizational titles and change all references to development criteria to development standards?
I so move.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Uh,
Thank you. Okay, I think we're back to page 5 of the markup, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So M3, which is at the bottom, that's conditional use permit changed to special use permit. Moving on to page 6.
Were you at one? Again, I'm not looking at the one y'all looking at, but there were several places in M2A that referred to planning director. Did you catch all of those?
Yeah, M2A, C, and E
A, C, and E, correct?
are all changed.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Okay. Going on to page 6 of the staff report.
May I ask a question, please? On 2E.
Yeah.
There's the sentence applications, or if the TAA, so on and so forth, are in compliance with the developmental criteria. That's an example of something you will change to developmental standard. Okay, thank you.
Okay. M3C7, which is page 6 of the staff report and page 15 of the full ordinance. I took out the specific reference to that article so that if it changes the appeals procedure, we don't have to come back and amend this ordinance as well if we change numbers in the zoning ordinance. So you refer back to the zoning ordinance appeals process. Okay, and then change zoning official to zoning administrator.
I have a question at the bottom of page 6. Yes.
We'll get there.
Oh, you can.
We're not there yet.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, next section Q, which is still on page 6 of the staff report, page 16 of the full ordinance. Changed, oh, I see another planning director. in here.
Yeah.
Will change planning director to zoning administrator and changed conditional use permit to special use permit. And then
That's where I have a question. S, are you an S?
we are just about to be an S.
Hmm.
So in S, and I see there's a confliction between the large ordinance and the full ordinance and the staff report. My recommendation is what is in the staff report. The way that this was previously written, I believe limits you guys to amending the ordinance only once a year. So I think the amendment process should be more flexible than that. And I don't think we necessarily need to define the process because it is outlined in 160D. We could also if you guys do want some more specificity other than in the manner required, in the manner provided by law, we could reference the zoning ordinance process for ordinance amendments. So, Bill, do you want to
Okay, we know where I wanted to be.
be where we wanted to be at?
Okay, and I now see I had the same comment or observation for Q right above. It says that the town manager and board of commissioners may alter amend. That means both the manager and the board have to do it. Is that right?
I had that same question. I think it should only be the Board of Commissioners. He could, I mean, process he might recommend or something, but I don't think he would have to approve it. would he?
And above it says the town administrator and the board of commissioners shall do it. I think that should be just the board of commissioners.
So in the in the zoning ordinance, amendments to the zoning ordinance can be done by the Board of Commissioners. However, strange. The Board of Commissioners, the Planning Zoning Commission, Board of Adjustment, or one or more property owners may file requests for ordinance amendments.
Yeah, it doesn't say they can alter amend. It's just they can file requests.
Okay, so yeah, that's the alter an amendment is in the zoning ordinance for the zoning ordinance amendments is just Board of Commissioners. So do we want to,
I think we don't want to give the town manager unilateral.
Well, it says the Board of Commissioners have authority to issue it or revoke it. In line 10, it says planning director or, and it does say planning director, a number of places in that paragraph, by the way. There are a whole bunch of them in that paragraph Q. But it says the planning director may require permit holder to correct violations, blah, blah, blah. And then it says planning director or designee may recommend the Board of Commissioners that it be revoked. So it's clearly the commissioners that are doing it. So it should say after the public hearing, the Board of Commissioners may revoke, and then it goes on, town commissioners may determine. I think the town administrator should be eliminated from all those.
We just want to make that consistent. Taylor.
okay, so we're removing under S, town administrator manager.
Right.
There
So it
actually-
should just read the Board of Commissioners.
And there are actually 4 places, I think. The 2 right there together. There's about 6 more lines down where it says, should the permit holder fail, town administrator and Board of Commissioners shall convene a public hearing. Delete town administrator there.
Oh,
Um,
okay, I
That's in
see what
Q.
you're saying. Okay.
All
yes.
this is in
That's all you
Q.
gotta go back to
Okay,
Q.
And then
so
the
we're
4
also removing, so starting at line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. After the appropriate public hearing, the cross out town administrator. Board of Commissioners may revoke the tower and antenna use application upon such terms and conditions, if any, that the cross out town administrator. Board of Commissioners may determine. Skipping down, should the permit holder fail to correct any deficiencies in the time required, the Board of Commissioners shall convene a public hearing to consider revocation of the tower and antenna use application. Going to the last line, the Board of Commissioners may impose reasonable restrictions with respect to time and procedure.
Correct. And,
Yeah.
and while you're correcting stuff, going back up to the next to the last town administrator, you deleted
Next to the last.
the one about 2/3 way down where it says, should the permit holder fail to correct any deficiencies in the time required? And you deleted town administrator. Right before that sentence, the prior sentence ended with a comma rather than a period. I know you love that, Mr. Child. Are you with me? Should the,
Yeah,
and actually the sentence before that does too, the permit holder shall provide the town with evidence that required corrective action has been taken. I think that should be a period. Should the permit holder fail to correct any deficiency in the time required, comma, so the period is between taken and should.
very strange. Yep. Okay, got it.
Gosh, my goodness. Now, did y'all go up in the queue? Further up, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down from the top of the queue. Did planning director get changed there?
No, we only mentioned the one, but there are 2
I
more
circled
at
them.
least. in there.
Yep,
Okay.
I circled them.
Okay.
I don't know how that made that through out of
Yeah.
my search, but I've got them.
But there are 4 or
Thanks.
5.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Okay, can I have a motion to revise the planning director title, remove town administrator, and add a period in section Q? In Q?
And it's.
In S, yeah. Yeah, can I have a motion for
So moved.
this?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Confused?
Had a question, Kayla,
Yes.
or for the commission. There's a reference to a publication in a newspaper with general circulation in the town not less than 10 days prior to the hearing.
We're gonna take that out.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, whether we do that.
Where's that?
No,
Well, it's in Q. So there, if you get to the section, it looks like it's about
Mm.
12 lines above, about the permit holder failing to correct any deficiencies. The Board of Commissioners will convene a public hearing, but then it talks about, yeah, notice by publication in newspaper, and if we don't do that,
so I misspoke. I had added that language into section S on the large ordinance, but this is my recommendation for section S. I realize you're talking about section Q.
right,
So that is
is that a requirement?
that's in line with 160D for legislative hearings. We can change that to the public hearing shall be conducted as the manner provided by law, if you guys want to do that.
Perfect.
Or we can reference the zoning ordinance.
Well, I want to make sure that if we are required to do that, that we do that, number
It's-
one.
Yeah, that's the staff does that.
Okay,
yeah.
staff does that.
Mhm. That's a standard for all legislative hearings.
Got it. Okay. And we do that through the Black Mountain newspaper?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That
I
would
think
change
it's,
to as required by law.
right, I think it's cleaner to refer to the,
So the Board of Commissioners shall convene a public hearing to consider revocation of the tower and antenna use application in the manner as required in the manner provided by the law.
Well, you leave a period there and then say the hearing
The
shall be
hearing.
conducted
Okay,
in a manner conducted pursuant to notice provided in the manner required by law.
Shall be conducted following notice
Okay.
by publication.
following is better.
Pursuant to.
so following notice,
That's required by law.
sorry, following notice publication as required by law.
Just delete pursuant to and replaced with following, right at the beginning of the line in mind. The hearing shall be conducted following notice by publication in the newspaper.
Well, can we just say the hearing shall be conducted following public notice as required by law?
Say notice.
Yeah, I would say notice as
Okay.
required by law.
Okay. so-
Because just saying publishing it in the paper doesn't provide a time frame.
Right,
You
The
know, what
hearing-
content is required, but the general statute does.
okay, so the hearing shall be conducted following notice as required by law.
That's what I would recommend.
Okay.
As required in the manner provided by law. Or just,
Shall be conducted. What'd you say? Following notice
following
Notice, so much.
Notice.
private.
as provided by law.
as required. Mhm. Yeah. I don't think it's necessary. Yeah. It's a legislative hearing and that's spelled out word for word in 160D. So I think we're okay to not reference it.
Anything else on this?
Can I get a motion for that piece?
I so move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Alan, you have a question?
No, I was wondering if we could take some more off and still get this 10 days prior.
That comes out.
So so it's, that sentence is now going to read. The hearing shall be conducted following notice as required by law.
Just notice,
Just notice, yeah.
because you might have to give notice to the adjoining. Okay,
Okay.
weight's been awful fine. It's unusual. Good, good, we're glad.
So that's the last change that I have.
I have, I'm sorry,
No, that's okay.
under S that you've got there at the end, where you change town administrator and amend this, may amend it anytime you did away with the annual review. I had a question about the next sentence.
Where are you, Jay?
Well, in the one y'all were looking at, it stops
Yeah,
at the bottom of page 6,
I didn't,
subsection S.
I didn't take this out of. I didn't take the remaining text out of the big ordinance. My recommendation is what's in the staff report. So it just should read, now that we've taken out town administrator, the Board of Commissioners may alter or amend this ordinance as required in the manner provided by law.
And did you delete the rest of the paragraph, all that
All that's
45
gone.
days,
Yep.
35 days?
All that's gone.
Good.
So you didn't get into the procedure at all? Okay.
Nope, no, we'll just reference the law for legislative hearings, yeah. So that's the last amendment that I have for these. Does anyone else have any?
So let's get a motion to approve them in their entirety as discussed. Is there a motion?
I so moved.
Second.
I think I moved it, John.
No,
Julie, John, pick one or the other. Or is there any discussion? I don't want to move too fast. I'm already uncomfortable going forward. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right. This was, thank y'all for your diligent and laborious work.
And I do want to pause for a second and just address the emails that Jane Warner had sent regarding her concerns about cell towers in general.
Before we do that.
Yeah.
Your, plan, if you take this to the town commission in December, would we need to see these beforehand, because we won't see the final product,
Well, you guys just approved it,
like we did before, then you brought back today.
right? So we didn't approve the subdivision amendments at that meeting, 'cause there were so
Oh, we
many.
did not.
No, but you guys just approved these. So I mean, I guess we could go back and strike that from
Why
the
don't you,
record.
why don't you just do,
If you wanted to see them again.
why don't you circulate the changes to us before you go to the council? If anybody has a suggestion, then we'll
Just
see. if
call
they-
a special meeting.
just-
and-
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, that's fine. But for now, they're approved as amended.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. So yeah, so I'd like to kind of now maybe jump back and talk about the emails received from Jane Warner and some maybe revisions that we want to, some maybe items we want to look at pursuing next year, as far as revisions to the wireless communications ordinance, and we can also talk about the future revisions to subdivision as well. But let's start with wireless communication. If anyone has any suggestions of,
I don't have any, I'd like time to think about it.
Okay.
So I don't have any now,
that's fine.
because I was really looking at the grammar.
Does staff know of any requests or applications or anyone who has a desire to set up more?
No. Nothing has been submitted. I have received no inquiries.
Just for curiosity, I can see the tower from the existing tower from our deck. And I would say twice in the last year or two, there've been some modification, one of them rather recently, where they took some of the branches off, the artificial branches and put in some more boxes, and I don't know who's doing it. I'm just curious, do they come to the town? Do you know if they come to the town, do you get permission or approval to do modifications? They do,
Mhm.
and is that,
Well, now it's co-location requires.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if
And who
what-
approves it and all of that? I don't know the process.
it depends, I think. on each situation.
I agree with Dan. I'm really interested in this. I would like to know what we have existing right now on our towers, and especially with the 5G, which I would really like to gather some good study about that and health issues, and also studies that are showing changes in the ecosystem. I just think gathering information would be good.
So what I will say from zoning, Telecommunications Act of 1996 prevents regulation of cell towers based on environmental health effects. So
Okay.
I'm not aware of any jurisdiction that regulates based on health effects.
That would prevent us from having any say so on what is put on the existing towers or the water tower. It appears they use water towers
Yeah.
to,
Well, now we can talk about where they're allowed. We
okay,
can talk about what zoning districts, we can talk about, buffering, distance from a home,
Okay.
things like that. But
okay,
as far as regulating based off of health effects, the Telecommunications Act prevents that.
okay.
So we can look at zoning districts, the approval process, things like that.
I think a good starting place would be to find out exactly what we have right now.
Yeah.
And, start there if that's possible. And then also, like Dan said, what is the process? If I want to come and add something, because I'm sure the college needs good Wi-Fi. We're all thankful that we have better Wi-Fi than we used to. We just want to do it wisely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious as to who approves, if
Mhm.
there is approval. I didn't know if there was. I thought he might have gone up there and put it and didn't check with anybody, so to speak. And then the second thing is, what conditions do they have to meet to do it? I'm just being very selfish. It used to look like a tree. It doesn't anymore because they've added so many white boxes up there now. Originally, when they first built it, it really was rather like a tree.
Mhm.
Why did they continue that?
That's the question. Were they required to make it look like a tree originally, and are they still required to? Has anybody ever said, or maybe they were never required, they just did it gratuitously and we didn't have any control of it. I don't know. I'm just asking questions. I have
Yeah,
no answer.
and I don't have an answer to that right now.
I had the same concern that Dan did. You're right. When it first went up, I thought it was a requirement that they could not just put up a cell tower. It had to be disguised as best possible as a tree. This totally doesn't resemble a tree now. And in reading the ordinance, they talk about repairing, but there's no reference to refurbishing, which is a totally different thing. And I think if we can hold them to it, we ought to have that in there because it sticks out right now. It's kind of an eyesore over
Sure.
Lake Susan.
Sure.
So I think we need to address that.
Okay,
No.
sure.
And one thing, sorry, go ahead.
And I was amazed at the legislature taking such a firm stance on it. They really don't give the local municipalities much discretion at all. You have it in zoning, I understand,
Yeah.
but not on the rest of it.
What-
Well, I'm sorry, my concern is also along that same lines. If you don't have that and they're boosting, the emissions from a tower like that, and you have no right to kind of either know or discuss it, it seems to me that you might need some smaller towers that could just act as routers and send the signal down the valley a little bit better, as opposed to just, oh yeah, we've got a tower there, we're just gonna, indiscriminately ramp up power, which could have some health effects long term.
That's my understanding with the new technology is that they do. I'm not a computer person, but my understanding is that they do like use smaller things for the signals to bounce off of, that they have the big towers in certain areas. Is that, how would we proceed in finding out who owns the property where the tower is? Just gathering
Yeah,
information.
so I'm taking some notes while you guys are talking, and what I can put together is I can figure out based on our records where the towers are, and I can see who owns the property. I may be able to tell who owns the tower
Okay,
and how tall it is. Has it had co-locations on it? I'll see what I can gather.
I can't believe they wouldn't report an easement to the right to use that tower.
I don't know.
Can you define co-location?
It's, I think it's putting an additional use of a common wireless communication facility or common site by more than one wireless communication license holder.
So it says in D1 that that's where aesthetics, placement, materials and color, it's on page 8 of the ordinance. Aesthetics, placement, materials and colors, the following standards shall apply to all new antenna arrays and new wireless communications facilities. I'm wondering if the fact that applies to new, but not
You guys
changes.
talk about refurbishing.
That's what I was wondering.
So they,
yeah.
they complied with the request and made it look like a tree, but.
But now,
How many years, 3 or 4 years now, it's deteriorated and they haven't gone back to refurbish it.
exactly. And D1 talks about antenna array attachments, and I need to see exactly what that is, but it makes me wonder if that would have covered us if it was an ongoing requirement.
Do we under the statute have do we under the statute have the power to talk about aesthetics, placements, materials and?
For cell towers, I believe you can.
You can't.
Yeah. Most jurisdictions do require some sort of stealth camouflage, something like that. That's pretty common. And also limiting them to specific zoning districts, like commercial, industrial. I mean, we don't have that here, but things that are less residential in nature. So.
You
I
know,
think that-
just real curious, I'm just learning as we're talking and reading that D1 that Julie just mentioned. It says antenna array attachment shall be designed so as to be comparable with the facility to which it is to be affixed, including but not limited to facade colors, camouflage technology, et cetera. Well, those new additions recently have not done that.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I mean, if you guys. We can talk about the ones that may not have been doing that after this, excuse me, and we can. Yep, we can talk about that after this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Just one other thing on that point, just one other question. So is the, I don't know what the history is for kind of the current technology that's in place here, but is there any history around or any ability for us to have input into consideration either now or going forward of any, say, non-terrestrial alternatives to what we've got, like a Starlink kind of a service, to the extent that it could provide equal or better capabilities for what we want and potentially have less impact, either health or ecosystem impact.
an interesting question. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure, but that's an interesting question as far as zoning goes.
Right.
Okay, so what I've got is locations of existing towers and co-locations, the development process, what are the current regulations, potential refurbishment or amortization of existing towers, and then non-terrestrial internet options.
And then ownership. And
Yeah, that'll be under existing,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so when would we like to revisit this conversation?
well, do we have any agenda yet? Do we have, this meeting's adjourned. Do we have any other substantive things to come up before the January meeting? We could take it up.
Not
then.
at this point.
Is that okay with y'all? That way, let's just get, and maybe.
And
you-
I will need time to pull all this together.
Sure,
And I will be gone for part of December, so.
okay.
Yeah.
Would you be able to get out any information that might be helpful to us in learning about it in early to mid-December, so that we'd have some time to read it and reflect upon it?
Whoever is sort of the provider for this capability here in our code, maybe they could come and address some of these things to us too.
I'd rather learn about it before we get them here.
I'm saying whoever it is that is responsible for the tower and has connections and stuff, they may have some of that information too, that they could just send out to us or provide to you to send out to us either way.
I can,
Speak to
so
us.
before that, I can try.
Yep.
By mid-December. It may not be till beginning of
Okay.
January
Okay.
before I get all this.
When's our meeting in January, the 10th, I think? Is that right?
Do you know? And while she's looking that up, regarding the providers, I think that's something maybe we can talk about at a later date, as far as if we have specific questions and things like that, once we've got a better handle
Yeah.
on the current.
I don't think
situation.
we should gin them up before we get.
Yeah.
further along.
It's the 12th.
Is Starlink, that's the Elon
That's
Musk?
Eli Musk, and it may not be practical in a situation like this where you've got a lot of houses that you, as I understand it, the current technology that they use, it does require kind of satellite dish on the house that can clearly connect with the satellite. So it may be feasible for some, but not all of in the homes in my street, but it's more just kind of a concept as technology evolves, what ability do we have to kind of influence consideration of other options.
I think it's an interesting question, and definitely something I can try to pull some things together on. It is, these kind of alternative technologies are so early. We may not know yet how zoning can play a role.
I have a family member that actually is a cybersecurity IT expert. And would it be okay if I maybe to see if there's any links or anything
Yeah,
that he could
absolutely.
help
Sure.
us with? He teaches at UNCA, so
Absolutely,
um,
absolutely.
When did you find our next meeting is? The 12th. Okay. So we, we have a couple of weeks, that's fine.
I will try.
Sure.
I cannot promise that it will be to you guys by early to mid-December. Yeah. Okay, so talking about potential things to look at in the next, period of time, the subdivision ordinance.
I'd rather have another meeting, so this will get lengthy to do all the wireless. If we did the subdivision, the town will have approved it, hopefully.
Mhm.
And so maybe we could have a meeting in February, and then we got quarterly meetings, but we could, if we wanted to do that.
Well, I mean, in advance so that I can gather some
Sure,
information for everybody, but if you want to set another meeting now to discuss that, we can.
Okay.
Haven't we already finished subdivision?
What now?
What are we talking about?
We
I
did.
thought
I
it,
thought we wanted to go back through it and just see if there was any substance.
of substantive issues, yes.
I know section 500 is
Yeah.
one of them that we need to look at, as well as potentially assigning minor plats to the zoning administrator.
Okay. I realize that we'll be out of town for the month of February, so. February would be good. So let's just hold off on the meeting. now,
Okay,
And just put it on our
that's
potential
in
topic.
January, we can talk about
Sure.
a date. So is there anything that comes to mind besides section 500, which is the conservation subdivision design and the potential reassignment of minor plats to the zoning administrator? Are there any other sections that jumped out to anybody that we maybe need to look a little bit deeper at?
If you do get any suggestions to Kayla. so we don't
Yeah.
Wait till the last minute.
And this probably we won't see until subdivision. Sorry, hang on one second. I can't do two things at once. Subdivision looks like maybe we won't see until the late spring.
Right.
But wireless we'll try to talk about at the beginning of the year. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and if anyone has any other topics on either of those, just send them to me and I'll do my best to pull something together.
And just to keep everybody's focus on everything, we still got bubbling in the background, sign,
All right.
steep slope, hillside, and the overall amendments that we make. My subcommittee will eventually get to once the lot's controversy is resolved, but just
You're waiting on that.
keep it on you. Yeah, just.
I
keep it
can
out.
give some updates on that. So the sign ordinance, I've drafted it. It's with Ben right now for some review, and so hopefully I'll have that soon. Hillside Development, we are having a meeting
Yep.
on December 8th at 10 in here. And at that meeting, what we're going to do is review the overall ordinance, all the regulations, the process, how it's enforced, and then have a discussion about some modifications, things to look into.
And that's just a subcommittee.
That's just the subcommittee, yeah, not the full board. So you guys are welcome to obviously attend. It'll be open to the public. But that's what will be.
Wait,
That we were all gonna be at that,
no, that's
Yeah,
just you and
so-
Liz and me. So,
okay,
anything else?
No, that's for everybody in December.
that was my understanding.
Yeah.
What? That's for everybody? I thought that was just our subcommittee was meeting.
No,
I
that's
thought
for
so as well.
everybody. That's gonna be the
Oh.
overview of the hillside
Hillside,
development
okay.
ordinance, and then
Hillside.
we'll have a
Okay.
space for discussion with the full board, and then we can come back as the subcommittee and talk in more detail about it.
Would you repeat the date?
Is that, wait, hang on one second, Julie.
I'm confused. I thought the subcommittee was going to resolve it and come back with recommendations.
It is a subcommittee, but we reserve this room so that if anyone else wants to
Oh,
come
yeah, anybody can come.
and learn about the ordinance.
But it's just a meeting of the subcommittee.
It is a subcommittee meeting, but I wanted to make the full board aware of it because I am going to be talking about the ordinance and the current regulations, how it's enforced. We had discussed this at the last hillside development subcommittee meeting.
Anybody can come to it.
Right, I
Sure.
just wanted to state this one because I am gonna talk about how the ordinance is enforced, the different regulations, all of those pieces. It's gonna be a more deep dive.
And what is the date and time of that meeting?
December 8th, here in this room at 10. Got it,
10 o'clock or 10:30?
10. So it is a subcommittee meeting. It's not a meeting of the full board, but I wanted to make sure the board was aware of it.
Anything else?
This is to put in the future, just, I really think that we need to examine the historical district definitions, and I know there's a lot of interest in that. I'm just throwing that out there
So
for,
to do a
future.
historical district, the first thing that has to be done is the historical inventory. So you would pay someone to come in and do it.
okay,
So
Would
that,
that be something planning and zoning does?
no, that is a consultant who would come in and perform that assessment. And it's, I believe, it has a establishment process that is through the State Historic Preservation Office, I think. I'm not that familiar with it, but it's not as simple as just enacting an ordinance. There's a whole other level that comes to it. It's not as simple as saying this is a historic district.
Oh, and it's a very, very complicated process and talking to other towns and people who live in other towns that have historic districts.
It is
I have a
something-
offensive bias against them, but that's just my personal.
It is something we can talk about, but it is not as simple as us, as the Planning and Zoning Commission, writing an ordinance and enacting it.
It might be better for you to approach a town commissioner and say, this is something the town might want to consider.
There are people who have, ability to really know this stuff, and maybe 500 of them in my tree.
Okay, any other business?
Move to adjourn?
I just want to make sure. Oh, is there any public comment?
Josh, you got anything?
Everybody gone? Okay. We're not allowed to what? Oh, I didn't know that.
Post-COVID.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, so is now there a motion?
Move to adjourn.
There's a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. We are adjourned. Thank you all again.
Thanks, everybody.
It is a little confusing.